Hello, and welcome. I am Exit Light, and this is my channel. I started a series last week in which we are going to travel around my home state, my current home state, and I'm going to tell you about some haunted buildings and its history and who's haunting them. I want to concentrate mainly on ones where you can still go and visit. That way, if you're very brave, you too can go visit these places and experience a haunting of your own. Then perhaps you can come back and tell us about your experience. Before I get started, two things. I am still recovering from my illness, and it affects my lungs. So, if you're not a huge fan of breathlessness and wheezing, you're in for a treat. I'm sorry about this. Next, if you would, please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up now before we get started. And if you would like to be subscribed and you are not, please click that subscribe button. And if you would like to be noticed when my content goes up, go ahead and click that bell and choose the option you would like. All right. So we are in Fort Worth, Texas, and we're going to go to the Stockyards Hotel. If you live within a 200-mile radius of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you probably know that the Stockyards is where you can go party, have a drink or several. The idea for constructing a lavish hotel in Fort Worth's Stockyards district was conceived in the mind of Colonel T.M. Thanix. I think that's his name. I think that's how to pronounce it. If not, please forgive me. One of the city's pioneering businessmen who initially constructed a two-story frame building in 1904 on the corner of Main and East Exchange Streets. In those early years, the building housed a saloon, a billiard parlor, a barbershop, a confectionery shop, a restaurant, a real estate business, and an insurance firm. A few years later, Thanix built a 3-story brick hotel on the eastern side of the property. The new Chandler Hotel had a restaurant and a bar, guest rooms on the second and third floors, and a physician's office on the street level. In 1913, Colonel Thanix demolished the wooden structure and built a brick addition to the hotel to take its place. Over the years, the hotel has underwent several changes in ownership and names, and today it is known as the Stockyards Hotel, located in the heart of the Stockyards National Historic District. The hotel preserves the splendor that has attracted guests like Willie Nelson and Garth Brooks and an assortment of cowboys and cattle barons. Legend has it, however, that some of the hotel's most illustrious guests never checked out. Bonnie and Clyde stayed in the hotel in 1933, and their ghosts are said to haunt room 305. Each year, hundreds of guests visit the Bonnie and Clyde room to gaze at an amazing collection of memorabilia from this infamous couple. And a few guests say that they have encountered the outlaws themselves. One morning at 5 a.m., a guest reported feeling an invisible presence climb into bed. The terrified guest jumped out of bed, got dressed, and checked out. A number of remarkable EVPs have been recorded in room 305, and a faucet in the bathroom is said to sometimes turn on all by itself. Another of the hotel's seemingly permanent residents is believed to be the ghost of a cowboy who was killed in a gunfight in front of the hotel in 1910. Apparently, this cowboy spirit, whom the staff members have christened as Jesse, has taken a liking to the Stockyards Hotel. The cowboy's full-bodied apparition has been seen wandering up and down the hallways on the second and third floors, and on the staircase leading to the second floor, and in the indoor-outdoor banquet area called the Marine Creek Terrace. Some guests have reported hearing the jingling of the cowboy spurs in the hallway. Room 214 is also thought to be haunted. Guests have complained about feeling unusually cold in specific spots in the room. One guest told the management that she was trying to sleep when she heard footsteps pacing back and forth outside of her room. The footsteps stopped, but then a few minutes later she heard them again, this time inside her room. In Ghosts of North Texas, Michael Whittington tells the story of a former employee whose name was Jake, who had worked at the hotel for 20 years. As the hotel houseman, Jake's job was to knock on the doors of the guests' rooms and deliver messages. The ghost of the former houseman has been credited with a number of strange occurrences at the Stockyards Hotel. For example, desk clerks have reported receiving mysterious phone calls from an unknown extension late into the night. Jake is also said to take the elevator up and down at odd hours. In 2010, two sisters were using the telephones behind the elevator when the floor started to shake. At first, the girls thought that the hotel was being rocked by an earthquake. When they reported the incident to the desk clerk, he told them about Jake the houseman, who frequently rode the elevator as he delivered his messages to the guests. The Stockyards Hotel is still the premier hotel within the Stockyards area. It is in walking distance from a number of historic saloons, such as the White Elephant, Booger Red Saloon, and Billy Bob's Texas Saloon. Inside the Stockyards Hotel, one can find suites named after some of the outlaws who might have spent the night in the hotel after a hard night's drinking in the local watering holes. And, according to some of the witnesses to paranormal activity, a few of these old Western types might still be making themselves right at home at the Stockyards Hotel. The W.E. Scott Theater at 1300 Gendy Street. Again, I think it's Gendy. Could be Gendy. Gendy. Is known as one of the best public events theaters in the entire state. Since its construction in 1966, financed by a trust left by its namesake, William Edrington Scott, the theater has hosted concerts, plays, and an occasional public appearance by an apparently stage-struck ghost. The W.E. Scott Theater at 1300 Gendy Street is known as one of the best public event theaters in the entire state. Since its construction in 1966, financed by a trust left by its namesake, William Edrington Scott, the theater has hosted concerts, plays, and an occasional public appearance by an apparently stage-struck ghost. The night cleaning crew has identified the ghost as the spirit of Ken Yandel, said to have been either a young actor or a lighting designer who hanged himself from a pipe in the basement. Many people have seen a shadowy figure stride across the stage when no one else was present. Some have heard the echoes of disembodied footsteps in the stairwells just off the stage or on the stage itself. In one well-publicized account, a wardrobe woman was standing near the stage late one night when she heard weird laughter. She was so certain that she was the only living person in the theater that night that she dashed out of the front door, and she never returned. Late one afternoon, a female employee was walking past the janitor's office when she noticed that the tap was turned on in the sink. She turned off the water and was shocked to see the tap slowly turn itself back on. Terrified, she fled the area and returned a few minutes later with another employee, who also witnessed the tap turning itself on. A male employee who heard the commotion in the janitor's closet walked into the room and exclaimed, "Okay, Kenny, cut it out." The water immediately stopped flowing out of the faucet. Ken's mischievous spirit sometimes ventures into the costume shop as well. Employees have seen objects falling off a shelf for no apparent reason, looking as if it had been swept off the shelf by an invisible hand. On one occasion, several young women who had been working inside the costume shop left for a few minutes. When they returned, they were surprised to see wet footprints leading in and out of the doorway. On July 22nd, 2006, the Stockyards Paranormal Investigation Team conducted an investigation of the W.E. Scott Theater. Several members of the group started investigating in the dungeon area under the stage where Ken is said to have killed himself. One of the investigators was walking around with dowsing rods when suddenly the rods crossed themselves. During the night, the group collected a number of interesting EVPs, including a voice saying, "Let me out of here," and several popping and clicking sounds in the dressing room. In the green room, the group recorded a spectral voice saying, "It's cold again." If Ken Yandel's spirit did indeed make his presence known that night, it would seem that he is not particularly happy to be wandering around the theater. Next, we're going to talk about Peter Brothers hats. Before we get started on that, I want to say something. When we moved recently, we were looking in the Dallas area, and we were looking for a specific type of home. We wanted to live in an industrial building that had been converted to lofts, a warehouse, or something similar to that. We found a former hat making company that had been turned into lofts. Before we went, I did a little investigation and looked it up on the internet and found out that recently there had been a horrific, terrifying murder that had happened in that building. Very recent. We came to the conclusion that if this had taken place 200 years ago, as people who aren't bothered by the creepy or the haunted, that would be fine. Better even, maybe. But that because it was so recent and the perpetrator is still alive and well, albeit in prison, that we didn't feel comfortable moving into that building. A person could use their Sherlock Holmes skills and easily find the building I'm talking about. Anyway, my suggestion is maybe don't move into hat making companies. Something about them. Maybe that's why they call him the Mad Hatter. Jim and Tom Peters were Greek immigrants who started out shining shoes in Waco. After they had saved up $600, the brothers moved their business to Fort Worth in 1911. $600 was a lot of money back then, and bought a small building near 9th and Houston Streets. The pair then set about remodeling the building into a shoe shine parlor. During World War I, to accommodate their growing business, the Peters brothers had to add onto their building and increase their staff from 4 to 36 men who shined shoes in 2 shifts. In 1921, Tom traveled to Philadelphia and began working for the famous John B. Stetson. I don't think you can probably live in any Midwestern, Western, Southwestern state and not know what a Stetson is. I'd be likely to bet that you can't live in any state and not know what a Stetson is. After learning how to make hats, he returned to Fort Worth and began making hats at the downtown store. Ammon G. Carter, publisher of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, was so impressed with the Peter Brothers hats, which he called the Shady Oaks, that he gave them to movie stars and dignitaries who visited Fort Worth. Tom took over the business after his brother died in 1933 and moved the store to 909 Houston Street. He discontinued his shoeshine business and began making hats full-time. Decades later, following Tom's death, in 1991 at age 98, the hat shop was passed down to his grandson, Joe Peters, who runs the business today, assisted by fifth-generation hatter Thomas Bradley Peters. The store has a wall of fame featuring photographs of its most famous customers, including President Lyndon Johnson, actor Jimmy Stewart, evangelist Billy Graham, and Clayton Moore, who played the Lone Ranger on television. In 2011, the business celebrated its 100th anniversary with a special 100th anniversary hat. Nowadays, Peters Brothers Hats is known for its resident ghosts. The most commonly reported ghost at the hat shop is the spirit of Tom Peters. Joe believes that Tom's ghost is a vigilant spirit who walks through his old store to make sure the business is being ran properly. In Ghosts of Fort Worth, Brian Ryhe reports that objects have been mysteriously moved around the store. Joe has also found hats that had been placed on long hooks, and they were found lying on the floor the next morning. For years, employees have heard moans coming from the basement, which they have attributed to the spirit of a former employee who tripped and tumbled down the stairs and subsequently died from his injuries. It's also said that the pizzeria next door to the hat shop is haunted as well. Shortly after the funeral of a dishwasher named Jack Martin, the door of Eli's Pizza opened and closed by itself for several days. The phenomenon always occurred precisely at 4:15, the time when Jack left for work every day. Jack Martin's ghost was also said to torment new employees by spraying them with water every time they walked past his dishwasher. So, if you visit the hat store, stop in next door for a slice of pizza as well. You might just end up getting a taste for the supernatural. And if you want to buy one of those hats and take it home, you might get a little something extra on your way. Thank you for coming to my channel. Again, if you have not already, could you please give this video a thumbs up? It greatly helps my channel. And if you would like to be and you are not, go ahead and subscribe. And for long-time subscribers, if you would, check and make sure that you are still subscribed. That would be great. YouTube has been having a problem with that again. And I'll see you later.